How do you lower your ACOS on Amazon ads in Q4 using bidding techniques? I'm David Goldenberg, a 20-year digital vet. I led the marketing for a seller who grew from 30 million a year to 57 million a year and started PPC agency based on that. As Q4 progresses, people buy more. There's more search volume, but there's also higher conversion rates. So how do you take advantage of that increasing demand without raising your bids so high that your ACOS gets hurt, but without raising them too little and you miss most of the opportunity? There's also questions about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, where the value of the traffic changes rapidly. In the few days leading up, people are waiting for deals so they convert less, and then the traffic value increases on Black Friday, drops down Saturday, Sunday, back up on Monday, back down afterwards. How do you chop and change and again do it precisely so that you don't miss on the opportunity, but you don't overspend when people aren't buying? What do you do the last week of December? Let's address all of these questions so you have the most profitable Q4 in your brand's history. It's maybe surprising, but the data you need in order to manage your bids successfully in Q4 is not actually in the advertising reports. You can find it under your business reports in Seller Central. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So if you open the menu on Seller Central and you come here to reports, you go to business reports, and what you want is a detailed page sales and traffic by child item, this third one over here. And then you see that you can choose what period of time this is for. What you do is you set it up for the relevant week from the previous year, and then you are going to compare that with the following week so that you know what the differences are and how much you need to change your bid. So let's take an example. If I go to December or November, let's say, last year, and I take the first full week, so from the Friday the 1st to the end of those first 7 days, I download the report. So I need to see my total sessions over here, and I need to compare that with my total sales. Okay, that's this column over here, ordered product sales. And what I do is I divide the product sales by the sessions. Sessions is just basically fancy talk for visits. And what that tells you is, so over here we've got 12,500 sessions and about $46,000 in sales. So if I divide 46,000 by 12,500, or 46 by 12, that's a little under 4, meaning making a little under $4 per click. Okay, so if I'm making $4 per click, then my cost per click, if I want a 25% ACOS, I need to get it to around $1, right? Because $1 is 25% of $4. So what you do is you calculate that percentage for all these products. You just do that in Excel. Let me show you how to do that. I just come over here and I'll add a column after column R. Okay, and we'll call that SPC, or sometimes call it RPC, sales per click, revenue per click. It means the same thing. Right? We just divide this number by that number. I'm tabbing over with my keyboard, hit enter, and then what I need to do is just double click, and it populates these numbers for the rest. Keep in mind that some products that have very little data, right, this is not going to be so significant for. So if you had, just like a few orders on a handful of clicks, this is not as relevant. But when you have sufficient data to see a pattern, then it becomes relevant. Now what you do with this number is basically you just repeat what I showed you. You download the next business report, okay, for the following week. So if I come back here, I would get from the 8th to the 14th. I download that again, and I repeat this calculation. Then what I want to do is basically I want to compare. So over here I have the next week of data, right? I go to the original, Control V, paste it all in. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to calculate the difference between those two values. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm subtracting the first week's sales per click from the second week's sales per click. That's T2 minus S2 in parentheses, and that difference divided by the original sales per click tells me the percentage that things changed. So you can see it's not a big difference. That'll be basically negative 8 cents difference, right? Because the sales per click got worse by 8 cents per click that week, but from one week to the next. And so we should see a low percentage change, right? Minus 2%. Over here you can see that it went up from $6.10 to $6.37, also a modest difference. And so that translates into 4% difference, right? If we deduct 610 from, if we deduct 610 out of 637 and divide that over 610, so that tells us that 637 is 4% more sales per click than we had originally. Then we got the bottom corner of the cell, double click, and it populates down. Now what I've done is I've downloaded the business reports for the other weeks in November, for the last week of November going into December, and I plan to calculate these other ones over here. And what this can allow us to figure out is, when do the sales start to go up, the sales per click essentially, and that's a point where I want to be bidding more, and how much more I want to bid, that's going to be based on these percentage differences in a sales per click. So if I'm making 10% more per click, I can spend 10% more cost per click. Okay, so I want to show you guys also how I import this data from the other sheets, right? How I bring this from November week 2 into here. It's a simple VLOOKUP formula. So I look up my ASIN, which is over here, okay, in column B2, and then I'm looking for the data within the range of this sheet over here, November week 2. Okay, that's the tab, excuse me, not the sheet. And then within the columns B to Z, and it's the 18th column because that's where I added my calculation. So it ends up in column, I think, S. And then false means I need exactly this ASIN to be the one that is checked in the other sheet. So that when I hit this, okay, it shows me the value. So it's in column S, that's the 18th one counting from B. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 18. And it gives me this value. So what we're seeing here is a series of columns that I added into the business reports. And what we're doing is we're comparing week after week how much we're making per click and how that's changing from the week before. And what this can do is it can help us to figure out how we should be adjusting our bids, what we can anticipate is going to happen for any given product in the value per click, basically. So each row over here, as we were talking about earlier, is a individual ASIN. And you can see for this one over here, the first week of November, our revenue per click, or sales per click, SPC, was 370, then 362, 2% difference. The following week, third week of November, was 343, that's a 5% difference. The following week was a big drop. It went down to $2.78 per click. That's a 19% drop. And then the last week of November was even further, 7% drop. But then in the start of December, basically the second week really of December, it started to pick up to $3 and then 363, right? So respectively 16% increases and 20% increases. You can see over here there's a lot more ASINs, a lot more products whose value per click is going up as it's getting close to Christmas and people are trying to get their gifts purchased and delivered on time. And in comparison, over here in November, there's a lot more things dropping. You'd have to, compare for your own individual products and see what the situation is. Now, I didn't continue over here to download the business reports for the fourth week of December, and the reason is it changes very significantly from other things that we can see here. And I want to show you that because you need to understand exactly how the data shifts and why you can't just look at whole weeks of data in order to make your bid adjustments to change up or down. Okay, so here's what's happening your last 2 weeks of December. The way that the conversion rate changes is something like this. So working back, this is Christmas Day. People are giving gifts. There's virtually zero traffic. I'm exaggerating, but basically the conversion rates draw off a cliff. That's basically like the no sale day. Working back on these two, you need to keep in mind shipping times for Amazon. Everybody on Prime gets free 2-day shipping, right? So if they want it basically on the 24th, so that they can give it on the morning of the 25th, in theory, they need to order it over here, right, on the 22nd. But I put a question mark there because in practice, many years, the shipping times have not held out because everybody wants to ship in time, and loads of people get things late and it doesn't work out the way you want. And what that means is that already on the 22nd, the conversion rates are starting to drop off, and it's going down very steeply, really maybe from the 21st. The 21st is probably a decent bet to get actually good conversion rates because it's really the deadline to order and get it in on time. But over here, these are dead days for your conversion rates. And then the 25th is just like dead, buried, and they're in mourning. 26th though, things pop back up. Why? Because it's Boxing Day and loads of people have gift certificates that they got the day before, right? And they're not necessarily spending them all on the 26th, but it continues, trickles on, not even just for that first week, but the bump tends to continue onwards into January. Now, why am I showing you all this stuff is because before what we were looking at is whole week increments, but there are special time periods in Q4 where you can't just bid on a whole week because you have an event in the middle that just changes the normal behavior, right? So for example, if you're a brand like one of our clients where Sunday is the best day of the week, on a year where the 25th is a Sunday, it's going to be a terrible day. Don't expect your conversion rates to be anywhere what they normally are. This isn't actually the way the calendar works out this year. I'm just giving an example. So what you need to do is you need to download your business reports, okay? If you've got it, let's say for the first 3 whole weeks of December, if you started from December 1st, if not, for whatever reason, for example, you're starting back from November or whatever it is, okay? So you might have a business report, right? Those reports I just showed you where you have the sales and traffic broken down by child ASIN, and it comes out to, let's say, the 19th or the 20th. So what you need to do is start to get daily reports, right? So give a time period of just a single day, let's say for the 21st, and then calculate again based on that what your sales per click are and how that compares to the previous sales per click, if you want to adjust up or down or just leave it based on what it was. And then you need a separate report for the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. On the 25th, if your bids aren't down like 50% or more, you're probably going to see your ACOS jump pretty badly over there. Then again, you can't go on whole week increments because on the 26th, you need to jack your bids back up, okay? So again, you're going to need separate data over here for the 26th. Until when do you want that report? You probably don't want it for the 31st. 31st and the 1st, basically, okay, are not going to be high sales days because it's New Year's and everybody is partying and offices are closed and the rest of it, and people are drunk and they're not really shopping in the normal way. It's nowhere near as bad as the 25th, but the 31st and the 1st are again down. So you need to again get your business reports separately for the 31st and the 1st to figure out how much you're going to adjust down for those days, okay? And the idea is you make that same sort of spreadsheet that I just showed you how to do based on the sequence of business reports, And based on the percentage changes, you adjust your bids up, you adjust the bids down. Now, I want to show you one more thing about Q4 bidding that's kind of similar to this. So every year, the last weekend of November is Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And that looks like this. So you've got the Friday over here, Cyber Monday over here, and in between, Amazon is getting everybody to run deals on the Saturday and the Sunday, in addition to the normal deals on Friday and Monday. Okay, so what happens is people are expecting this, right? They're expecting the price to go down. They're expecting price slashes, right? This is what they're thinking is going to happen. You may or may not do deals, but that's what people are programmed to expect. So if you are a consumer and you think you can get a deal on Friday, are you going to buy on the Thursday? No. Okay. Are you going to buy on the Wednesday? No. Are you going to buy on the Tuesday? Maybe you're not that patient. Okay. Kinda. On the Monday, a bit more likely. Okay. The Sunday is probably not going to be affected. Okay. But the rest of the week, your conversion rates are basically going like that, right? They're tanking. And so what you need to do for this is, first of all, you need to get a business report looking at the 3 or 4 days prior to Black Friday, Cyber Monday for you last year, okay? And get an idea what is a percentage drop in sales per click compared to what was doing before, and that's how much you'll need to drop your bids. Now, is this perfect? No, it's not perfect because you may not have been in business last year. You may not have had this product. Maybe you introduced a product for the first time this year. Situations like that, you can look at similar products. You can look at other things in the same line, for example. You may not have, okay? So I would say at a minimum, you probably want to drop your bids 30%, and that's for things where your ACOS is within your target ACOS or target range, right? So if you're going for, let's say, 25 to 30%, and you have keywords and ASINs that you're targeting that are within that range, so you want to drop those bids by 30%. If you're above that, then obviously you need to drop the bids even more, right? So figure out what your normal bid calculation would be. Get it within your range, and then take off another 30% minimum, okay? Don't just go with 30% because you're gonna have products that are way above, way below, and if you just do that because, like, that's your last resort, right? You're seeing this video, on the 26th and it's 5 p.m, fine, so do something to save your ad spend and, somewhat help your ACOS. But if you're seeing this before, take the time to do the calculations. Now, what about the Saturday, Sunday? These days are very tricky, okay? This is what happens with your conversion rate. On the Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the conversion rate tends to go up, okay? Black Friday. Saturday, Sunday, it goes back down again, and not to this low point, okay? Like, it's gonna go back up, but then it's not as high on the Saturday, Sunday as it is on Friday, right? So depending on your particular niche, the Saturday might be lower than the Sunday might be a bit lower than the Saturday. You need to, again, check these individually, get the report from last year for the Saturday, get the report from last year for the Sunday, and calculate that difference. And then on the so Saturday, Sunday, right, we've got a little bit of zigzagging, but it's not at the same level as Black Friday. And then Cyber Monday tends to go up again. It'll vary if it goes as high as Black Friday or higher, depending on your accounts and your products, but you can expect that that's going to be higher than Saturday, Sunday. Why? Because people are expecting, well, I didn't get the deal on Black Friday. Saturday, Sunday, I'm not seeing deals, but maybe on Cyber Monday, there'll be a deal. They come back on Monday and there's still no deal. Well, guess what? They still want to buy the product. Some of them do anyway. And so there's no more point in waiting because there's no more deals forthcoming. So that conversion rate pops back up, and that's why the Saturday and Sunday tend to do lower. Again, this is speaking from working with sellers who usually don't run deals on those days. Your mileage may vary if you're working with sellers who do run deals on those days. Okay, so you need to get 1 business report, 2 business reports, 3 business reports, 4 business reports, 5. What happens during this period, okay, this is a 6th business report. It doesn't tend to go back down to this, horrible drop over here, but it's probably not going to sustain the same Cyber Monday level. You might be back somewhere around Saturday, Sunday, or maybe even a bit lower than that. Now that you know how to manage your bids in Q4 to lower your ACOS, I want to ask you 2 questions. First of all, what's your target ACOS, and are you there? Please let me know in the comments below. Second, are you interested to improve your profitability by 20% in the next 6 weeks, free? If you are, there's a link to apply for us to do that on your behalf. Check that out in the description below. Let's see if we're a fit.